Hey, friends, we are fearless. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Frances Young, and we are here on episode 5. It's 5. Before I get into this episode, I want you to already know what your human design energy type is. And if you do know it, fantastic. Pull out your app, pull out that PDF that you got somewhere from someone, and follow along. See if what we're saying resonates with you. How do I better understand this part of my graph that looks like it's calculus or something that just doesn't make sense to you? I'm not a math person. And if you do not have your graph, if you do not know what your human design energy type is, don't worry, I got you. You're going to go to my website at www.francesyoung, FRANCESYOUNG, followed by CPT, or catphiliptiger.com. And you're going to go to a page, Your Energy. You're going to input some information, and then you're going to have your human design energy type. And you can follow along. So let's get into it. Today I have a guest. Her name is Vanessa. And Vanessa, how did we meet?
We met when you were a guest on my podcast not too long ago. And we had such a fabulous conversation that I had to ask you to come back for a second time. And now I get to reverse role and hang out here and just be in your zone of genius in a totally different level. So I am looking forward. Give me all the goods on my human design. Let's go. Let's do it. Also, I have to say, episode 5 for you, my life path number is 5. So thank you, numerology goddess, that you didn't know you were.
Oh my goodness. And you're a 5-1 profile. Like, how cool is that? Yes. And it's cool that one of I'll say the premise of the podcast as well, just to remind everybody, I love to have my friends and family, people that I know really well because I jive with them. But then you just meet people and you just jive with them. Like Vanessa and I, we've never met in person. She lives on the other side of the world to me currently. And you just asked me back. I got super excited because we're both generators for our energy type. And you happen to have the same birthday, or technically the day after my best and closest friend.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So the energy that lives within your body is very similar to energy I've interacted with before and know well. So again, it's kind of like I already know you. Yeah. As like a backstory. So I interview my friends and my family to help them better learn their design. And they just go ham to rack my genius brain on design. So Vanessa, question 1, let's hit it.
Question 1, based on my human design, what would you say my strongest gifts are?
Ooh, I love it. Okay. To pause for a moment, I'm going to hold up Vanessa's human design graph because I draw it for every guest. It's a little bit of my nerdiness. Maybe it's my Cancer rising. To get it in frame for those that are going to watch it potentially on the interwebs. So strongest gifts. I'm going to look at it for a sec. I got to take a second. Here we go. First off, just from even me drawing it, my attention goes right to that. Yes, you are a generator and you know that. So your authority, as you know, how your body makes a decision, is your sacral center or your gut. You can also say that. And so the gifts that are within there are very strong because they are linked to your authority. So I'm going to look at them again. We're going to go with 3. Let's go with 3.
Okay.
10, 34, I see Vanessa writing them down. Amazing. And 57. But 57 is in the spleen, and we'll get there. And you're like, oh, okay. So 34 is one that I have, and it's actually very important to my authority as well. So being a very prominent and strong energy that speaks to me all the time. 34, they call it in the many different ways that it is called magnetic charisma. It's just this moment that there are certain people you meet and how they speak, how you can literally see the frequency of golden orb around them. This to me is a generator as a whole. But if that person happens to have 34, there's a different, if you see a generator or you know other generators, Vanessa, and you can see the light and the energy that's coming off of them, it feels like it's pulling you in. It's one of those gifts that's heightened if somebody has it present in their graph. And we don't have to try hard. If we actually try hard at bringing people to us, it actually shuts the gift down. Does that, I see you nodding like quite a lot. Does that resonate with how your energy feels when you're around people or when you're lit up?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. With having 34 for myself, I have to put that one aside. Of my ego wants to put that one aside sometimes to forget that I have it. So I just am naturally kind of walking around like a kid when I'm super happy, giving off the good vibes. And I can feel when people are feeling it.
Yeah.
When, if for myself, if I've just come from a dance class and I'm super lit up, or I've just eaten something I really like. And so when you're in your energy that feels awesome and your gut has to make a particular decision, letting how your body has just been excited, whatever that first reaction is going to be to something that you have to decide, let that light, it's the only way that I feel like I can describe it with words, guide you, because it's particular to every person. It's connected to the G center, to the yellow square on the graph, at least for what I've drawn, and it's connected via gift 10. I also happen to have that one. So this channel is where actually a big piece of where we really resonate with each other. 10 is called the love of life. And for those people listening, that if you potentially have 34 or 10, regardless of your energy type, 10 is, for me, I have a love-hate relationship with 10 for being a strong gift within myself. It's actually my north node to draw in some astrology. So where I am headed in this life, but loving life, again, when I'm doing the things I love as a generator, I'm so in love. I'm so satisfied. This is amazing. Woo! And it's also very much linked to where I'm, yes, north node headed, but G center is the center of direction with regards to looking at the chakras from our human design graph. And my dislike with this gift of just like knowing the other side of what it can feel like for us to interpret what is the strength and what is not the strength of it, is that we're actually designed, in air quotes, to fall out of love with life, with this gift on purpose, putting as this greater bubble of when we come back to the things that we love, the people that we love as being a generator, when we find this like oomph again after we've learned a lesson or had whatever happened to us that causes us to fall out of love with something or out of our energy that we know is us and this excitement, when we're bringing ourselves back and generating our life force again, it's like everything is that much juicier for us. We like love and appreciate our body, our time on this earth, this moment that we then pass on to others. And for me, not knowing you very long, I can see that that is something that within you, how you teach, you love every ounce of what you do, who you are, your people. But it's okay if you've been through some life experiences to get there, because you're the 5-1 that's going to teach us about it. And it's strong within you.
Yeah.
It's something that can't be denied.
Mm.
The loving life for us is really awesome when we're loving it.
Right.
but can sometimes feel deep when we're not. The
Mhm.
human experience.
Mhm.
57. Now you were, oh my God, at 57 prior. Have you looked up 57
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what is your interpretation of it? Just, I'm curious. How do you feel about it so far?
Well, what I associate with the 57, and I don't have the training like you do, but to me, it's the psychic channel. It's the intuitive channel. So it's
Mm.
the automatic knowing, it's the downloads, which is my work. It's who I am. It's just, yeah, the automatic intuition, the psychic channel.
Amazing. Well, I love
But
that you brought that
is
up.
that right?
It is one of them. And all of the gifts of these 64 numbers that are on a human design graph are essentially the way that our body is intuitive / our mind. However, 57, to give a different way of saying it, to give it a title,
Mhm.
is called reading the room.
Ah, that totally makes sense.
And again, psychic is another way, like you just know.
Yeah.
When you walk into a room, you just know what happened. Like you
Right.
could even pick up on the words that were potentially said, because words are energy also. 57 and gift 48 are, to me, these like super intuitive, even more magical ones, if we want to like say them in that way, or psychic ones. And 57 comes out of the splenic center. It's one of the triangles that are on a human design graph on Vanessa's. I happened to color it in pink today. And 57 is in the moment knowing. It's fight or flight. So tying it into, you know what happened if you're not supposed to go in that room and interact with that energy. Or if you're working with a client or a group of clients all at once, you're already picking up on the vibe of, okay, what do I do and say with this group of people as opposed to, and or this other person that I just worked with?
Right.
In the moment knowing, it doesn't have to be a second guessing. I'm going to ask a question to go along with this to see how maybe this has turned into such a strength for you.
Mhm.
Was there a time in your life where you weren't as confident with feeling like this? Is there a time where your brain or maybe conditioning of how you were brought up that was like, I don't know if I'm this?
I think there was many times where I didn't trust my knowing,
Mm.
but if you got me up in the corner and were like, no, seriously, read the room, I would say 100% my read is spot on. I know what I'm reading. I have no doubt. But the trust had to be built. And I think the trust came, the lack of it came from a number of different areas. But yeah, if there's one place where I'm like, no, that does not get questioned, it's my read of the energy. I know what I'm reading. And that does not get compromised, especially now where
Yeah.
everybody, because the trust now is very much a core part of who I am, but that was earned, that was built, the trust. It didn't come as naturally as reading the room.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And it
Yeah.
like naturally fed into it then at that point. Love
Yeah.
that. Your
Yeah.
conviction in the way that you were saying that, I'll bring up another tidbit of, personally, I think a strength for you and how you read and express is something I haven't talked about yet, is you have what is called an open throat
Oh,
in
right.
out of the chakras. So it
Mhm.
is white, even though on the graph, and it does have a couple channels coming out of it. But an open throat, something that's such a true gift about that is it knows what to say and when to say it.
Hmm.
That is the strength of that. So just knowing that, yep, this is the energy. I'm just going to say it when I need to say it or when I'm asked upon, and I'm going to trust that. The only downside sometimes to an open throat, or a way I'll say the reverse of the strength, is that sometimes it feels like it always needs to speak up, where I don't know what to say and when to say it. So I feel like I need to say it all in order to be heard. Does that
I don't
resonate?
relate to that at all. No. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But then the learning of it over a period of time, I feel like just the way that you said that, there was so much conviction, the tone of your voice. I was like, she knows. And she took time to trust it, but she okay, mic drop,
Yeah.
read on energy. Cool. So yeah, 10, 34, and 57, super strong gifts for you with related to your authority. I love how I picked out the most psychic one that you've already connected with. Cool.
Mhm. Super cool. Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, like a
Uh,
side tangent.
Yeah. So when it's colored in the throat, if
Mhm.
it's defined, how is it different?
Like the actual center itself. I'll hold
Yes.
up the graph in a sec. So
Yeah.
I have the opposite. I have a defined throat. If the throat, which is the first square coming down from those two triangles, that's white. If that was colored in green or whatever color, that would mean it would be defined. And mine happens to be that. And what that means, in difference to it being open, is that I truly have to speak my, yes, let's put air quotes, truths or the things that I want to do. As soon as I hear my voice say something from what's happened in my brain or someone has asked me a question, whatever comes out is very much then brought to life. Because the throat center, when we refer to it in human design, is the center of manifestation. It's where things are in the world all of a sudden, whether we write it, whether we speak it, sing it. And both the open and the defined have manifesting powers. It doesn't mean just because yours is white does not mean that you cannot manifest, Vanessa, or anybody listening. If your throat center is white, don't worry. It wants to be heard in a different way
Mm.
by your energy itself, like your physical body and how it responds to your own throat and how the world responding to you responds as well, or just interacts with what you've said.
Hmm. So interesting.
Did that feel like it answered it for you?
Yeah. Totally.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Question 2.
Based on my design, what are my top 3 biggest challenges?
Top 3. I
And
love
and,
how
and any tips on how to work with them?
yeah.
Yeah.
I love how in each question so far, you've asked like miniature questions. And it's
What did
not
I add on?
yeah, but it's like it's totally how I would ask a question too.
Okay.
That's why I like feel naturally called to say this. You're like, I've got this idea and then kind of go on an expansion. So thank
Perfect.
you. So 3 things that are the struggle and how to deal with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One, we'll just go with a very simple one that all generators can relate to and is also one of my biggest things that I struggle with is my feelings of shoulds or
Mm.
shouldn'ts. And just the idea of how it energetically feels in our body when we're trying to decide, should I do this or should I not do this? And I'm specifically trying to say it as not trying to say yes or no, like how we body decide is the generator, but how our brain is relating to just the conditioning of our life, culture, how we've been brought up, where we currently live, all of the things. Because every day and how it relates in my brain, I'm still trying to remember in the moment of when I open the fridge, let my body pick the thing as opposed to should I have my tea this morning because of X reason, but yet I just really want my coffee. So I just have your coffee and remove the conversation of should and should not.
Is that just generators?
It's a heavy conditioning for us. It's a heavy way in which at least a generator in comparison to other energies and how we resonate with the things that we want to do versus what the world tells us we should do, to put should into the sentence,
Mm.
is one of our energy types' strongest conditioning of what we deal with.
Gotcha. Okay.
Every energy and every person deals with their toying inside of what should I be listening to? How am I going to go about my day on the micro to how am I going to go about my life? And this is what my mom told me to do, or this is the way that is said to be the 5 best foods to eat by X person and how it relates in our brains and bodies. We typically, at least for like where humans are at evolved in a society right now, generators have usually been praised for things that they didn't want to do
Mm.
that
Oh,
makes them feel as though they should. It just naturally turns into that for us.
yeah.
And it's our struggle. But once you start to play with taking out the mind thought of should or shouldn't, I find that has been at least successful for me.
Mm.
And maybe it's a different wording for you of it's not should and shouldn't, but how if I just break my brain cycle of thought when I'm starting to feel when I'm choosing whatever I'm doing, let alone when I'm going to schedule a podcast call or like, how just scheduling life lately. I just go with the in the moment and try to remove the should or should not. Does that resonate for maybe how your brain speaks to it or just like how you have operated more lately or what's going on in your brain after saying that?
I feel like I've used the strategy before of removing the should, and that did make a difference at that stage. Where
Mhm.
I'm at this stage is I find what's most helpful to remove the should is actually in my body. By moving my body in a new way, that's what breaks the conditioning. That's what breaks the pattern because the language piece feels solid to me
Okay.
now at this point in like just my own personal development.
Yeah.
Um, and that when I notice when the energy gets stuck and it feels like that should energy, because it feels different, right? Like there's a
Mhm.
different sensation, a different energetic to it. So I notice it. And then I work with my body more as a partner to be like, all right, like how do we move this should energy? I'm not thinking a mental thought or I'm not languaging it in that way, but I feel it specifically. And then my body's like, you want to do this right now. And I'm like, okay, I want to do this right now. And then the next thing that I know, I'm not in that should energy anymore. I'm in that 10, that love of life. I have a body and I just moved my body and it feels good. And that 34 kicks in. So that magnetism from that love of life, then all of it just reinforces the reading of the room for myself of like, okay, now where can I direct my energy now that I'm outside of that conditioning or that patterning of the should? And thank you to my body who just broke that pattern. So I'm working with it in a different way. That's what I find most powerful for me at this point.
Mm. I just learned from you. I knew it. Exactly. I'm like, okay, that's my next level. Got it. As for people listening, trained as a professional contemporary dancer. Dance has been my life for forever. And, all the things that you can look up about what I do movement wise. I'm like, okay, that's the next step. So if we've got people that are like shoulding in their minds or that's new concept, removing the shoulding in the minds and then remove that should from the body. Yeah. Okay. Another thing about your particular design. I'm just going to look at the graphs. Okay. Part of me wants to go up to the top and then also talk about ego as two things. Let's go with ego first. I love talking about ego in the human design sense, and I haven't done it on the podcast yet. So this is my moment. And you have an open ego. I'll talk about what that means. I also have one, but you happen to have a couple gifts coming out of it. One thing when we have an open center, or just when we're talking about the throat center, anything that is not defined, that's not colored in, and it has what we call our hanging gates. It doesn't have a connection to another center defining it. There's a different way in which we can have conditioning affect us about the vibe of what that center means. We can potentially be conditioned to think and feel and do things in certain ways that's not in alignment with what this says. But for ego, the two gates and hanging gates that you happen to have in that center for you is 40 and 26. I love to use the sentence, that is an ability to sell ice to an Eskimo. Just having this ability to speak to whoever you're in front of to allow them to understand what you're saying. It doesn't have to be mischievous gift or something that's underlying with not a good intention. It's you can communicate with somebody that you're trying to get them to understand something. When somebody's trying to sell something to somebody that they may already have that thing.
Right.
And 40 is, I'm going to say it in a very actually different way than normal because I want to say it in this way, is a desire to be famous, to be seen in front of people. And famous can be like in any sense, just be seen. But then also the other side to it is have these deep moments of solitude because I need to have the opposite to being in the spotlight of how I can be seen in my life.
Super interesting.
Mm-hmm. Open ego for me in human design describes my life story quite a lot, different aspects of it. It comes down to one sentence is that when anyone, if you have an open ego in your human design graph, that naturally gives you the energy when you're born that you know you are enough. You know that you have the ability to do whatever you want to do. You don't have to prove yourself if you have open ego. Your energy knows what it is. But the caveat of open ego is that it feels like it's the literal exact opposite. It soaks up as a white center to me is a sponge. It's my tried, tested, and true analogy for the white centers. It wants to soak up all the defined egos of the world that have constant motivation, that have constant, it's also a motor center, so it makes people like do and create.
Mm-hmm.
We're soaking up all that energy in the world, these open egos. And it's like, you need to do more. You need to do more. You need to prove more of yourself.
Mm.
Have there ever been scenarios for you, I'm going to take it broad, in your life where you felt you've had to prove to somebody as you're saying something that this is correct, that your ideas are correct, that you've had to work to get somebody to purchase a program in order to prove that you're a worthy teacher? I'm drawing this specifically to 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but it's just interesting the way that you're framing it because you're saying that inherently you know that you're enough, yet you act and feel in the opposite ways. And I have absolutely seen that take place my entire life where I'm selling myself to somebody else. But as I'm doing it, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing that? I feel really confident and secure in my gifts or whatever it is. Then I'm like, why did I just write 5 paragraphs about trying to get this person, this random person to like and approve of me? I'm like, I actually truly like and approve of myself. Like what? WTF? Like what?
Literally that.
You know? So yes, I have absolutely seen that. And I really had to create a discipline for myself of watching where I overgive, watching where I overstate, watching where I cross my own boundaries for what? Really dialing it back and going, all that I actually need here in this moment is my self validation, my self trust, my self respect, and I already have it. So let me just double check whatever it is that I just wrote and take 3 out of those 5 paragraphs and dump them because I don't need that. I don't need somebody else's approval. So it really feels like a practice or a discipline you have to do. But now I'm a little more in the habit of I don't do that, but I do still have the tendency. So I have to watch and pay attention to what is triggering me to respond in that way.
Yeah.
And which I don't have an answer to. I don't know if that's like in the chart or not, but
I think that's just living life.
right?
To put it as the biggest sense. I think you illustrated that beautifully, Vanessa, of how you know those qualities about you because you have such self-awareness, but it's still a constant practice for you. And I think that's such a mm, beautiful way in which how you see it as a strength, but something that you still know that you're just human about at the same time.
Yeah.
That's a part of your human experience and the things that go on in your brain. I would also say that that one even like links into the 5-1 profile. I'll draw in other things. So profile in human design is linked to describing us as a personality, how our brain sees ourselves and how the world sees us. And the 5-1 is very much superhero teacher energy. The 5 just wants to keep communicating to the world. It wants to keep saying, yep, I got you guys. I'm going to save you. No matter what I say, I just keep saying it. It just wants to keep going. And then it realizes, oh, yeah, I don't have to save everyone with my knowledge. I'm just going to save the people that like really want to hear it right now. Or I know that however I'm saying my voice in this moment will get to people that are meant to get to it when I'm supposed to be seen, which is the 40 moment, when people are meant to see Vanessa as this person that is meant to help them, not necessarily save them, just help. I feel like I had one other thing to say of just about open ego as a whole. Ego is the part of us that also really wants to keep us safe. It's like, it's kind of this like reels us in of whatever we're doing as a human. For so long, my brain tangent wants to go to Alan Watts, and his teachings have now been like awesomely remixed with random cool techno music on Spotify. If anybody is having a moment where they listen to those things, I listen to it too. And that we learn to make friends with this part of us that very much knows with open ego that we're good, regardless of we are safe. The opposite, the defined ego, is a really strong energy to be around. And with us being the sponges, we got to wring out that moment of, yep, I did enough and take out 3 paragraphs. I'm going to go to third struggle that I mentioned, having open crown and open ajna, particular to Vanessa's design. So if anyone, regardless of your energy type, has the 2 triangles at the top of your graph, white, or they've got hanging gates in them, something like that, but they're open. Your energy really wants to take in the world. It really wants to be inspired by its environment, what it sees, the kind of places that you may, depending if you do like these places, it potentially loves to be in an airport because it's around the potential of so much change. There's so many different people. It feels like a limitless place.
Mm-hmm.
And the crown wants to be inspired by limitlessness because anything can drop in. For you and your work of me knowing a little bit on the outside, you always want to have those drop-in moments or your energy is seeking it.
Mm.
And the ajna represents conceptual thought, opinion. And when it is open, it wants to soak in opinions, to use the sponge. It's like, yep, I want to know them all. Was there any point, say, even prior to this particular day, or an energy that may resonate for you that is, I feel like I just want my opinion to be right of whatever it is you're talking about, whether it's, what food to eat or that, whatever.
This is going to make me sound so egotistical, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Go.
I don't know if I have a desire that I want to be right. It's more that I know that I am right. You know what I mean? From an energy perspective, because when I'm reading something, I know that it's correct,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know if that answers.
No, it totally does. And I'm going to go on a riff because the open ajna, when it knows what it is good at, or that, like, what you are good at, the things that you have the opinion on, the open ajna is always right, in air quotes, to use the word right as language in this place to say right or wrong. But the struggle with the open ajna is that if it thinks it has to have opinion on every single thing in the world, like from politics to this, to that, to whatever, then it's like, trying to spew out everything it knows in order to feel like it's right. So that's why I asked that question, to see how you initially picked it up. And you were like, because I know of the things that I know. And I was like, that's it. So in so-called, you are using the ajna and it being white for you in a way that feels correct for you, as opposed to thinking that you need to be right about everything.
Yeah, I definitely don't think I'm right about everything at all. But when it comes to energy, when it comes to reading energy,
what you are the best at, like what your incarnation cross, your purpose on this life of what you feel is like, yep, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like for potential individuals that have it open, you don't have to feel like you need to know everything in order to be correct at everything or have an opinion on everything. So I feel like you're using that in the way that your body wants to. Love that. I love that. But now you know, okay, so what does it mean if I see somebody that has an open ajna, they're trying to soak it in and relay all these opinions and da da da. They could be trying to go. Yeah, I can see that you had a question about it.
Do you think, or do you know, do more empaths have an open ajna, like they're just sucking it all in, they're being sponges, or is that it's just speculation? We don't know.
That's a great question. I actually don't know, but the way that I love to speak about just using the word empath as a whole now is that we all have the ways in which our body, through the human design lens specifically, is empathic. And for yourself, Vanessa, you've got that entirely open solar plexus. So you soak in every single emotion and amplify it. And and you know that from literally of how you interpret yourself being an empath. You're like, yeah, oh, so much. I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you. Two non-emotionals like talking about their feelings is like, oh my God, it's so deep. But say for anybody that resonates with just wanting to feel like their opinion is correct, if they have an open ajna, I've watched it work for others that also have it open like yourself. And I can see when the switch goes, or when they don't even realize that a switch goes, that they don't necessarily need to give their opinion in that moment, but their conditioning or the way that and this is my perception of this also, maybe in the way that I make judgments about people when I know their design. So I'm trying to be authentic to myself in this moment, but how I interpret it, I'm like, oh, this could be a switch where maybe if they knew that about themselves, that they would relieve some sort of stress in their body, or they would maybe actually feel heard in a different way. So it definitely is an interesting empathic quality for people that have it open. My ajna is defined. And for a long period of my life, probably up until maybe even even last year, I felt like my opinion wasn't heard, but I am always speaking my opinion. It comes across quite clearly. I have a particular channel that connects my thoughts to my throat. It's like literally called a clear communication of my opinion. It's cool. But I felt like people never really, some people did, but for new concepts I started to talk about, say in this case, human design, I felt like people weren't hearing me. And I was like, I got to find the way that I need to talk about it. Darn it. Maybe another reason why we're doing it on podcast format. Yeah. So that's my experience with defined ajna. I feel like people, when I spoke up, sometimes didn't hear me in a room, regardless of what I was saying, even though my opinions are very much me. And it can sometimes be very difficult for people to sway what I have as a preconceived opinion about something, because that energy is defined within me. So it feels a little bit different than you being like, when I know something about what I'm supposed to know, I know. Yeah. Do you get sometimes too overwhelmed by certain types of large environments, aka that open crown is like, oh my God, how do I deal with this?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have a defined, I love where I'm going with this struggle of different things moment, and then we'll get to question 3, but not yet. You have a defined root and you have a lot of gifts coming out of it. So root center in human design is linked to the adrenal glands in our body. It does not have to go, do all the time, but it knows exactly when to act if we give it its like extra bursts when we want to. And every generator, just like any other energy type, if it was an open sacral energy, gets burnt out. And in some ways, defined roots and defined sacrals for yourself, as you have both, Vanessa, like we go over burnout. I have open roots, so it's a different experience, but defined root wants to push and you've got sacral, so it wants to push. And you're like, yeah, I know it all too well. It's once we become aware of it, then there's still, I think, a certain amount of just life experience of learning what it's like when you're not burning out to like even like level out the I'm tired of still doing this thought process. Do you have any other riffs or moments that you want to ask about those?
No.
Cool. I always check in just to see, and I like do full circle of like, is there anything else ruminating in there?
Yeah, no, I will say here's the open throat.
Yeah, that's why I check in.
I will say that thinking of the 40 and the 26, the way that you described that is really helpful. I'm not as familiar with the 26, but the 40, as you know, I know a little bit more about gene keys and geek out about that. So I'm familiar. I have the 40 twice in my gene keys profile.
Oh.
And I think of that more as codependent, like learning how to dance with codependency and boundaries and really honoring the need to hermit and sort of, more creating structure, sound structure in your life.
Yeah.
But the way that you've talked about it, the desire to be famous, the desire to be seen, and then the need to withdraw in order to manifest that desire is a completely new way that I've not heard about it. And so it's actually really, I feel like I know myself more now. Am I admitting that I really want to be famous? I did. When I was younger, I was like really into the idea. I remember before we got all fancy, I'm going to totally date myself. And I think, I don't know if I've told this story to you or not, but when I was, I want to say 16, 17, I really wanted a video camera. And at that time, the only video cameras that they had, the kind of you like put on your shoulder.
Yeah. Camcorders of some kind.
Yeah. It was like some kind of camcorder. And it was like super expensive, $250 or something ridiculous like that. Even though now we just walk around with them in our phones or it's so ubiquitous now. But at the time, I was like, just had this desire. And I didn't really think it was to be famous, but I just had such a strong sense of peace and home when like thinking of being on video. I was like, God, that feels so right, so aligned. I didn't have the word aligned when I was 16 or 17, but I just remember thinking like, I feel like I'm fulfilling my destiny if I'm on video in some way. There was some big thing about being seen on video. And literally, as I've been building my own business over the years or whatever, whenever I hit a pit of whatever the issue was, I would just turn on Zoom and start recording and just for myself. And I literally felt like I went to heaven. I'm just to talk, just to be seen. I didn't share the video with anybody, but I'm just like, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really glad that you're here. And I'm happy to be talking with you about this. I needed to see myself, apparently. And so it was cool that you're talking about the 40 in that way.
Watching even your energy change as you're like having your moment of like, thanks for like, I saw the same embodiment that I've seen since I've met you, just say through Zoom as an example of why also like full circle on explaining it about wanting to be seen or wanting to be famous, but putting it in how your body interprets it. It just wants to know that it is seen in its way just by itself. It doesn't mean that being famous in the way that our bodies desire it is to be on a stage in front of millions of people. But I like that particular description really resonated with me when I learned about 40. And I read them time and time again, one, to remember, and two, to resonate with people, to potentially learn about the same gift that they've already learned about in a different way. So it helps them realize that, oh, that this part about me when I was 16 was like, that was the way that I felt so good, and that you felt like a generator. So satisfied and picking up your energy of being juicy and awesome, because that's just what generators are. Okay. I love it so much. Okay, Vanessa, question 3.
Question 3 is, based on my design, what can I do to be the healthiest, most vital expression of me
I
in the
was
world?
really wondering if you were sorry to just cut off the end of your question. I just got so excited. I knew you were going to ask something about vitality. I was like, yes. Let's go full circle. I'm going to relate it to some of my own current life experience as being also a generator and feeling my energy change from doing things that I thought I loved that gave me a certain amount of joy and fulfillment and satisfaction, as to relay in all the generator words, almost 10 years ago, to now how those things morphed, and that underlying them all was actually an essence of shoulding myself. And that in a very short period of time of going and doing things that I haven't done in a really long time, that brought me a lot of joy without even realizing as a child, has, even in the past 4 months, brought me an inner vitality of feeling like I don't have to rush anymore. For generators that I talk to, because we are the majority of the population, or just define sacral if you're a manifesting generator, we're in a big hurry.
Mm.
And the more that I feel like I'm in a hurry, all of these other things that we deal with as like a species, anxiety, depression, the things that feel like they plague us, they
Mhm.
eat at our vitality
Mm.
for sure. And they make me feel scared about the future. If I feel like I'm not in a rush, I feel scared, like, oh, what's going to happen now? But when I cultivate doing things that somehow just deeply bring me a sense of, you're good, you don't have to rush. I have been less sick. I
Mm.
have, which literally is linked to, let's just say, immune system, like me being strong and, the vibes going, or that I can fight off a cold much faster, or it doesn't affect me as deeply. I can still operate at about 60 to 75%, but still doing a normal day of clients. I'll even do light movement, or I'll go to dance class and just not work as hard. But in a very short period of time, pre-COVID, when I got sick, I definitely got sick. And yeah, it depends on what your body ends up fighting, but it took me a long time to fight back. But now that I'm doing more of the things that just somehow naturally bring joy, my magnetic charisma, I feel like I love life that much more, to tie in some of those gifts. I know my vitality has gone up.
Mm.
And that wasn't through any particular food. That wasn't through any particular thing. It was just me getting back in tune with certain things that, as a child, as a generator, just brought me joy
Mm.
that I usually didn't notice.
Mhm.
So that's something that has really played for me as being a generator as well. So something for you to potentially play with as well, Vanessa, if you haven't already thought about it.
Mhm.
Other things about vitality and just generator. I'm like, so much satisfaction and peace comes over me when I think about knowing that we don't have to try as hard as generators, I think,
Mm.
because we have this inherent joy of when we're giving life force and doing things that we like to do. And maybe this also ties into being born female. Like, I feel like I got to try hard to show up, to be noticed, all of these types of things in my brain. But when I'm doing what I'm good at, I actually can do less and it turns out better.
Mm.
And so then I have more energy, which equals to me just a stronger essence of being or having more vitality in my system, feeling
Mm.
more alive with what I am doing in the moment because I'm not forcing or overdoing. Definitely an overachiever as a kid, let alone where I've seen myself in my career. How do those things resonate with you so far of just getting back to maybe some childlike essence and naturally all of a sudden just realizing your body's like can fight colds and or also not having to try as hard? How do those resonate?
Yeah, very much. They very much resonate. Lately, for me, what's been coming up under the not trying as hard category is just healing my relationship with time in
Mm,
general.
okay, I have a riff for this after. You go.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, when I'm done with this recording with you, I'm like, I'm going to make a video about healing our relationship with time. Yeah. Just allowing myself to feel the timelessness of the moment versus trying to squish myself into a linear framework, which is really related to the shoulds, this sort of conditioned structure of how we're supposed to run our days. I went out for a walk this morning and I was realizing that I've never had a traditional or like traditional mainstream job ever in my entire adult life. My upbringing in childhood was not traditional in any kind of way. And yet I find myself sometimes squishing myself and trying, even though I run my own business, I make my own hours, I create my own offerings, still trying to function within a time scarcity model
Mhm.
and feeling how my body is responding to that. And because I'll feel at peace in my mind and even relatively calm waters with my emotion. But my body is feeling this clenching and I'm like, what's or wound up feeling. And so I've been checking in. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, oh, the old paradigm of time scarcity and being squished by time wants to be released from my body. And so I need to consciously really, at this point at least, work at it like a practice, work at it like a discipline to just let myself feel free from a structure that I didn't even create. Like I didn't even grow up in, or I didn't even have a career based on that. And yet I'm holding it in my body, this time scarcity. So to circle back to the other point that you said around creating vitality through connecting with what you did and loved as a kid, dancing has not been my career. But if you would have asked me when I was a kid what I wanted to do, I wanted to be a there was a show called Soul Train, and they had like this line of people that came down that like danced down. I wanted to be a Soul Train dancer. I wanted to be a solid gold dancer, and I wanted to be an in living color dancer. Like every show that had like dancers on it, that was the ideal vision for me. And so I have been remembering that and dancing every morning. Like it's the first thing that I will do after I'll sit like after I wake up because I'm just like, whoa, okay, I am still human. I'm still in a body. Let me orient to this dimension of reality. And then I get in and then I'm like, oh, I've got a body. And so then I'll just start like moving. So it's this thing that I loved as a kid, which sets the tone for vitality. And it also, because that tightly wound up structuring of time scarcity, I've been holding in my body unconsciously, the dancing and the joy from that breaks it. It's like we can break that old paradigm modeling within us through joy. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be this, I've got to process it and till the cows come home. It's just, no, you could actually break it by dancing. You could break it by having this joy from childhood. So that's what comes up for me as you're bringing these points together. So
I was having such a hard time not being like your cheerleader in the background, being like cheering on the open throat, being like, all the mic drops is amazing. Yo. So many nuggets there I'm going to pull out. I still have the perfect nuggets in my brain of giving a couple more things about that's particular to your design that riffs on time and just structure that allow your system to feel its most strong and have its vitality flourish. So where the sun is when we are born, the zodiac sign where our sun is the most important energy that is prevalent within us that just wants to be expressed. All of it wants to be expressed, but that one's a little bit more oomph. And you have number 28. 28 is literally the gift of knowing the right time to act. Before I was like, she's talking about time. This is the best. So you bringing forward ideas about, in this case, because this energy wants to express in always within your work, how you know when to finish dinner right on time, like all of the aspects of our life as a human experience. You helping your clients and the world understand that we've got enough time. How many songs have been written about time? In this moment, I don't have any. Oh, closing time. Yeah, okay. I wanted to find one in my brain. We got one. Pretty good. That, I mean, you wanting to express how you understand it is what, your energy wants to do for the world. And not being constricted by it, your body, to bring in one last thing about your design, you have 3 out of your 4 arrows that surround. So everyone on a human design graph has 4 arrows at the top that surround the ajna and the crown. And depending on how many point in which direction can also give us an overview of how our system relates to structure. I have 3 out of 4 pointed to the right, just like you. Actually, in the same way, in that first one is right, which is digestion. Second one is left, which is environment. And then the other 2 on the other side also point right. Our system doesn't want a lot of structure. As an overarching. I don't like that either. Oh my goodness. If you would see my calendar, it's all color coded. I'm very, I got everything in a place. If I don't see I have enough like the structure of thinking about how life, in air quote, should be, wrap it all into one. Those should moments. We're breaking it. Vanessa, we've been breaking it since we were here, since we've been born, and to take us into this new paradigm that's already happening. And when it operates, even me on a weekday schedule, I still have clients that ask me, oh, I thought you always got up at 5 a.m. still. No, that was pre-pandemic, Fran. Some days I do. There's at least one day out of the week where potentially I have to wake up at 5 for a particular client. And then the next 3 days are somewhere in the middle of between 6 and 8 a.m. And my system feels great. It doesn't love the 5 a.m. all the time. So that was trial and error and allowing my system to flow on the structure that it wanted to, as opposed to trying to fit into the structure I thought I had to. That will just blow your brain nugget for a period of time. I can see the world, the wheels turning.
There's little pieces coming together right now.
I love that. Okay. I now already want to record and film another podcast with you because you asked me such beautiful questions. We went in such great directions. I always trust that, you bringing up the 40, but then me saying it in a new way was like meant to happen for you. And that I didn't pre-know what that was. Thank you so much for joining me today, Vanessa. And is there anything, I feel like maybe you've got one more nugget out of that open throat that might want to be said. on this podcast?
What's popping in to say is just that I'm really grateful that you brought me on. And I'm also really grateful that you are talking about human design in this way. I had heard about it many years ago, and it's such a different language that it really needs many different translators to be able to express it in new ways that can be relatable. I've since learned about it. And so I speak enough of the language to get what you're talking about. But I really got so much out of being here today. And I really love how you articulated it. And I told you already, I think this is such a cool idea with the visual and the way you let the guests ask questions. And it's, I want you to do this like every day for everybody.
All I want to do is just talk to people about their design. Seriously.
Totally.
Thank you so much
Thank
for you're most welcome. I'm also the mutual generator love is like it's all I want to do is just hug you through the screen. My brain and energy appreciates you and feels so grateful right back. So I always say to myself when I'm knowing that the vibe is reciprocated, that it's only the beginning and it's just a see you soon moment.
Yeah.
Side note for all the astrology things and to say it on recording, Vanessa and I have almost identical south and north nodes.
Oh, really?
So of our past lives and where we are currently headed together on the planet right now is like within a degree of each other. So that's super cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah. And so to wrap it all up for the day, here is a Fran frequency just for you.